VIP. Let's kick it.
Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby.
Alright, stop, collaborate and listen. Ice is back with my brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly, flow like a harpoon daily and nightly.
Will it ever stop?
Yo, I don't know.
Mr. Freeze has always been one of the more tragic Batman villains. He's always had a little sympathy thrown in for him, and that's very interesting because a lot of villains you don't want to imagine holding a lot of sympathy. You just want to see a pure villain. But Mr. Freeze, throughout the ages, has become a very sympathetic villain that we all really admire in a way. Because what he started out was, he started as Mr. Zero, as far as I believe, back in the comics. He was just a one-shot villain who had a slight gimmick. He just had a freeze gun and he couldn't survive at normal temperatures. That's all he really was. Even in the Adam West series, he was just a bunch of numerous actors stepping in to play this character. And I don't think it was until that series that he got the monkey hair as Mr. Freeze. But this series, we are incorporating almost every type of Mr. Freeze background into one character that you can imagine. Mostly it's going to be a formation of the Adam West series, the Batman animated series, and mostly the comics. I mean, everything you can imagine is going to be placed into this regiment of Mr. Freeze. But the animated series has definitely given us a lot of material to work with, because the animated series was what gave him the background of Nora and his wife and his sickness, which is very vital for this series of Gotham High.
I met Nora while I was recovering in this hospital. Back then, she didn't have to be sedated 24/7. When we would talk, she was the only patient that didn't look at me as though I was an outcast. When I left, I swore I would visit her every day. Even now, I intend to keep my promise.
When going through the voices of Gotham High, one of my personal favorites, I shouldn't pick favorites, but we have a damn good cast. We do. And someone who really stands out in my opinion is our good friend Patrick. Patrick apparently recorded his tryouts all together, and every one of them was a huge home run. He knocked it out of the park with each and every one. And I'm guessing his audition for Mr. Freeze was just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sorry for the pun. But he is so good as Mr. Freeze, you won't believe it. It's scary. Because he has that slight growl to his voice that's really sad, and it's really depressing in a way. And it's just so, it's so beautiful in a sense, because it incorporates everything that you can imagine about Mr. Freeze. It has that icy chill to it. It has that isolation that he is from other students. And again, it's just an incorporation of so many other characters in the writing. We even have a little bit of the Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze in there. Not to scare anyone away, but it's not used greatly, but it's still a little bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger in there, with a few puns do so. But yeah, his Mr. Freeze blows us away every time we listen to it. And there's even an episode in the first season completely dedicated to Mr. Freeze, so keep an eye out for that. It's really exciting listening to him because he just brings that character to life.
Principal Gordon, please. My condition requires me to be in cold conditions, especially in the summer. The students should not be allowed to complain where they live. Do not depend on it. Where their lives do not depend on it. Just ask my doctor.
When it comes to the character Mr. Freeze in this series, I don't think you're going to hate him. I think you're going to like him a lot. You're probably going to feel a lot of regret towards him. You're probably going to feel a lot of sympathy towards him like every other Mr. Freeze. But overall, he's just a cold, calculated person. We all knew these kinds of people in high school. Those people who isn't really chummy with everyone. He's just in the back. He's just in the corner at times. Relying on himself because he's a smart person. He can do what he wants to do. He doesn't need anybody else to help him out. And that's what the Mr. Freeze in this series is. He's just a sad, tragic person. He had an accident. He had something happen to him in which something terrible happened, and he's losing someone that's really close to him, and we all know that experience, and that's what makes Mr. Freeze in the series really stand out to me, because it feels real. It is real. Anything you can imagine and everything you can imagine is real. It's happening to this one character. Just because he is Victor Freeze doesn't mean he's not a real human person. So, to me, it just shows that the next time you ever see a person who isn't all that chummy, who is in the background, like I said, just cold and calculative and all to themselves, you just got to take a moment to realize there might be something going on in their life. So, you just got to understand that. There might be a little more introverted than extroverted. And Mr. Freeze, he's a little cold in that aspect. He's a very introverted person at times. Not the biggest extrovert, but a really big introvert. So, I think you're going to have fun with that.